Aloha, everybody. This is Tiggy Maximus with Tiggy Maximus Talks, episode 195 on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast, watching the podcast, spreading the word, following, subscribing, donating to the podcast, which, by the way, there is a link in the Spotify episode where you can make a donation to the podcast. Also, there's a link on my YouTube episode where it takes you to Spotify, and just click on any link and it takes you to a window and it allows you guys to make a donation to the podcast. Thank you guys for all that. Also, spread the word. Can't believe it, 195 episodes. So on this episode, I'm going to talk about 2 comedy shows and also briefly mention, well, let's start with that first. This past Friday night, September 9th, 2024, Tiggy Maximus here, was an associate producer making his debut at the Mic Drop. And I was helping out with Jeremy Gumbo Christian, L.A. Kalmick. He had a segment he needed help on. It's called the Nerve Challenge, where you take people who have never done stand-up comedy before, get them to do 3 to 5 minutes of stand-up comedy, and let the judge for themselves how well they did. So I got to introduce 2 people, 2 ladies. They were both dancers. There were Miss Holly, and you got Christy Drake. So 2 great people. Nice to meet them. And apparently they're both great dancers here in San Diego. And apparently they teach classes, and they also had another dancing friend who is a choreographer, Desiree, Desi, Danielle. So quite a dancing crew that was at that show. Mic Drop Gold Room was sold out. But I'll talk more about that on my next episode. So stay tuned for episode 196. On this episode, I went to a comedy show Friday night. This is the one I went after the main tavern in El Cajon. This one was nightcap 10 o'clock at the Mic Drop Gold Room in Claremont Mesa Boulevard. And this comedy show was called Slumber Party, produced and hosted by Samantha Schwimmer. Great comic here in San Diego. You'll see her around a lot. This one, I think it was encouraged that everyone gets to wear their PJs to the comedy show, but I just wore a hoodie, my Duke University hoodie, the blue one. Honestly, it was probably like the middle ground between my somewhat street clothes and my PJs. So Samantha went up first. She did talk about slumber parties, sleepovers, I guess talking about telling secrets to friends, girls. And honestly, of all the stuff that she said about slumber parties and telling secrets, and I guess she did talk about, I don't know, she might have talked about makeovers, sleepovers, and I guess kissing girls, kissing other women. So of all the things she said, it really felt that the crowd liked her a a lot in this one, and this might have been her best comedy set that I've seen in like 3 years from her. So I want to say she was an 8.5 out of 10. Next up, we have Sapna Iyer. She also wore PJs like Samantha did, and well, she did talk about the Titanic. She talked about having a themed birthday party or a themed sleepover, and it was Titanic related because Titanic was out at the time. I'm probably guessing this was back in 1997, and I guess that was the rage back then, and she wanted her birthday party to be Titanic themed. So she said a lot of funny stuff about being a doctor, sleepovers, sharing stories from her childhood, and I guess sleepovers in an Indian household in the 90s in the US. She did really well. She got a lot of good laughs. And she might have mentioned something about her husband. So other than that, she did really well. I want to say 8.75 out of 10. Next we had Courtney Bird. I've been seeing her quite a bit now, and she also wore her pajamas. And the one that kind of stood out about this particular set in relation to sleepovers and slumber parties, she did talk about criminal or no crime or murder podcast, crime podcast, true crime, and I can't get over the fact that this always hits is when she always talks about how there are names for people who watch those mystery murder podcasts and names for those who don't. And the one that was the funniest was when she said that the ones who don't watch the podcast, there's a name for that, victims. That was probably her best one in the entire set. And I want to say Courtney was an 8.8 out of 10 for her comedy. People liked her. Next was Grant Bosom. Long time that I've seen him. Last time I might have seen him was at a roast battle at the Comedy Store in La Jolla, and then before that it was probably on Melissa Weissman shows back in Pacific Beach. I think it was at the Amplified brewery or something. He did talk about sleepovers. He did talk about dating, I believe, but I started to notice that during the set that the crowd got really chilled during the set, and there were some laughs but not a lot, and he had some good moments during his thing, and he was quite loud actually, but after a little while it started to feel that it kind of settled down, and there wasn't a lot of stuff to laugh about. I don't know if Grant did mention something about the Palestine-Israeli war or something, so he might have said the word Hamas somewhere. I want to say he was an 8.25 out of 10 for his comedy. And then we got Rachel Lloyd. She wore two what seems to be bathrobes as part of her Slumber Party PJs. And the first one, I think it was like super thick, it was white fluffy, and then she had like maybe a black one inside or something. So she really got into character about this whole PJ Slumber Party stuff. And she did talk about a secret she had. I think she, well, she had to get out of a date by acting like she had to go, like she had diarrhea or something, had bad food poisoning. Um, it was super funny, and the fact that she's an actress, she plays it really well. Everybody was really into her set, and people liked her a lot. 8.7 out of 10. Um, the next person to go up was Anna Weiss. She did talk about how she was dressed in goth clothing, or from Hot Topic. She did talk about how she has strategies as to how to repel guys that try to hit on her. She talks about prayer, the stuff that she remembers back in church, and then apparently she can use it to repel guys at bars, like buy them a drink, go dancing, and she talks about pray for us, hail Jesus, stuff like that, and that got some good laughs. So overall, I want to say she was an 8.6 out of 10. Next up was Taylor Spencer. She had some. She also was wearing pajamas, and she talked about the zoo. She talked about the zoo, and she had some secrets, and I think that's when she also brought up that she was, I guess you could say, in a puppet club called Master Hands, and she brought the yearbook to share, and she had a puppet in her hand, and she could be seen in the corner of the picture. So very cool yearbook. I guess you can say that she didn't lie. She had a lot of good stuff. People liked her. Liked her almost in her entire set, and got consistency with all the laughter. So I want to say Taylor Spence was 8.9 out of 10. The last person to go up, she's also in her BJs, Veronica Gordon. It was I'm pretty glad that she's gotten back into comedy, and people will remember that she is funny. She talked about her autism, talked about some dating. I think she also mentioned something about a homeless guy. I guess cock blocking homeless guy because of a woman behind her. Overall, Veronica, she did pretty well. Crowd liked her a lot. I would say overall 8.6 out of 10. So there's a segment right at the end where I guess everybody has to kind of read some secrets, and for some strange reason Grant was left out for this one, so all the women were up. And yeah, Rachel talked about acting like she had food poisoning to get out of a date. I guess Courtney Birds had a story about a vibrator going off in her backpack. That's all the ones that I can remember. Overall, great show. Everyone did pretty well. The crowd liked it a lot. That's a good part. And there's a good amount of people in that gold room. So Samantha did pretty well hosting this show. If this ever happens again, I probably would go again. So yeah, there's another half to this episode. So that's me talking about Gen X, Jennifer Mason show, so fucking funny. So stay tuned for that other half of this episode. So stay tuned, guys. But yeah, remember to watch these comics: Samantha Schwimmer, Samantha Iyer, Courtney Bird, Grant Bosom, Rachel Lloyd, Zana Weiss, Taylor Spencer, and Veronica Gordon. Alright, guys, let's get into the other half of this episode. Booyaka! So here's the other half, guys, of this episode. So I wanted to talk about the So Fucking Funny show with Jennifer Mason. And she had it in the Gold Room at the Mic Drop Comedy Club in Clever Mesa Boulevard. As you can tell, I've been in the Gold Room quite a bit recently. But yeah, this one is a unique show because most of these comics, I think most of them are trying comic for the first time. They're probably been trained in like a month or so, probably 3 months, give or take, and so they're getting used to doing sets on stages, and this was their platform. And so I've always heard about this show, but I didn't know what was like the setup, the vibe, configuration of it, until I finally got to see it at the Gold Room at the Mic Drop. And I can tell Jennifer Mason is pretty much a very good teacher of comedy, and I think most of them should be just set to be pretty good down the road if they keep working at it. So the host of this particular show is Brendan Preshowitz. He's a teacher. I've saw him before. He was working with Chris Cobbler and Edna Nerona, and they formed the Less Than Foreplay. So it's nice to see Brendan Preshowitz hosting this one. He has a song called ADHD, and that's where he'll just get people to stop clapping because it doesn't go with his song, but then that's the whole song, because he's always stopping everyone because they're not clapping in rhythm or just clapping with the song even before the song. So that always gets a kickstart laugh. And he goes talking about his students, because he's a teacher, and he has some really good songs with jokes in it, and he plays it and you can hear it and you follow along. So Brandon's pretty great. Crowd liked him. He was 8.4 out of 10. Next we have Amber Largent. I guess she's fairly new to the comedy scene in San Diego, and she did alright. Crowd liked her during some parts of her set. I think she had talked about dating, and she is kind of loud from what I remembered. So I want to say that she was an 8.25 out of 10. Next we have Suzanne Ophel. I think she ended up talking about dating her husband, who happens to be the next person up because she signed him up for this. And then Suzanne just kind of talked about that, and was kind of just a little chill, but she got some good laughs in her set. I want to say that she was an 8.1 out of 10. Her husband came out. He signed up for it. He just pretty much talked about how he met his wife, Suzanne. And they just talk about how she kept signing him up for stuff, and this one was one of them. One time he went scuba diving, not knowing how to swim, but she signed him up for it. But so during this whole time, comics who just started doing this should be aware that there's a light that indicates that you have maybe a minute or so left to keep talking and get off the stage. But apparently Michael Felt, the husband of Susanna Felt, kind of ignored the light and kind of went on for another 5 minutes or so. And so Brendan had to stand by the door to get ready to pull the mic whenever Mike was ready to leave. So I want to say Mike was funny in telling the story. I would say 8.3 out of 10. Then we had the pleasure of seeing Audrey Hebert. She's now like a seasoned veteran of the comedy scene now. I guess you could say she was a featured comic on this lineup. And she kind of talked about how she was a hottie if she was in the 1920s. She talked about going to therapy, psychiatrist, and then there was some mention of therapy and questions about molestation. It just got more funny as she went on with it. So she did really well, and she's one of the best ones in San Diego, really. So she was an 8.9 out of 10. I believe there was another person that went up. It was Jen Park. First time seeing her. I think she had talked about being Asian in her name, and then kind of like talked about that for a little bit. And she got the crowd laughing quite a bit during her set. She did pretty well. I want to say she was an 8.6 out of 10. And then someone I was very familiar with, I just remembered, I actually saw this lady before, Maria Sweeney, and she is super loud, but she did talk about book club, and she had some good moments, and then it kind of died down because I don't know if just the loudness of her set kind of like curbed the crowd a little bit, but then it did have some other good laughs during the time. So she does recognize me, and I recognize her too from an open mic. So I might have seen her at the Madhouse actually, if not somebody's open mic. So I would say Marina Sweeney, she was a 7.8 out of 10. Then we have Jerry Law. He has this thing about Tom and Jerry, because he was named Jerry, and I guess he pointed out that he was named after the cartoon. So I kind of noticed it kind of had some laughs, and then it kind of took a while to kind of get to some punchlines, but I guess you're kind of in it for the long game sometimes. So I think he did alright, but it kind of like, the vibe was kind of down just a little bit, a little chill. So I want to say 7.7 out of 10 for his set. Then there's Ward Hahn. I think he did kind of talk about being Asian, and he did get some good laughs during the set. 8.5 out of 10 for him. And then we got to see Noelle Lovegren. She talked about dating, and she was super funny. Crowd liked her a lot, and I think she might have been the loudest crowd reaction of everyone, because I think she brought on a following and stuff for that room. So 8.7 out of 10. And then we got Corey Jordan. I did see him at the U31 before. I think he did talk about being black. And then talked about anime. So he got some good laughs for his. A little chill. 8.3 out of 10. And then the last person to go up was basically Jennifer Mason. I guess you could say that she headlined her own show. And she did talk about cats and how her cat doesn't like to be picked up. She did talk about being hit on by younger guys. She talked about being married. She talked about a teacher, being a teacher, and then something about some of her students acting very secret in bathrooms, and then apparently found one kid peeing into a drain, and then I guess the kid says that's not what it looks like. He was trying to pee to kill the flies, and then I guess she just referenced something about not wanting to use water and then save on pesticide. So it got some laughs because I guess she gave extra credit for creativity to the kid. So overall, I want to say that Jennifer Mason was an 8.75. She was funny, and I enjoyed the show. So you might see a lot of these comics at a comedy show near you, in a town near you. And I got to talk to some of them, and I told them that, you know, they're kind of like the next wave of comics that to kind of blend in with the veterans that are already here in San Diego, if not somewhere else. So overall, you know, check out the show by Jennifer Mason. She did a great job with this show, and I wouldn't mind going back again to see the new wave of comics, and can't wait to hear some new funny jokes. And yeah. One last thing. I had the pleasure of seeing the Chargers start their 2024 season. They started off at home at SoFi Stadium against the Vegas Raiders. It was a very defensive battle for at least 2.5 quarters, if not more. And then the Chargers had a problem trying to get first downs because they only had 2 first downs in the first half. And then they kept kicking field goals. They had forced turnovers, but they couldn't capitalize and only got like field goals. Now, granted, Dicker the kicker, Cameron Dicker, he's a good field goal kicker. Wherever the distance was, he nailed it each time. And then Justin Herbert finally got some rhythm going and kind of guided this offense with a couple of touchdown throws, and then kind of let's see, yeah, 3 field goals and 2 touchdowns. And the only thing I could say is that Justin Herbert, at least he got some short passes for touchdowns when it got close to the end zone. J.K. Dobbins and McConkey. So McConkey just got drafted by the Chargers this past draft in April. So he looks like he's already paying off already. And then I guess the other thing is that J.K. Dobbins is one of 2 running backs the Chargers got because they got rid of Austin Eckler. And so the money that they were paying Eckler, they got 2 running backs for the price of 1, and they were pretty efficient. So I like that Justin Herbert didn't get too badly hurt at all. No turnovers. but he probably got banged up just a little bit. But that's just the offensive line that's just working, just working to get better and better. So, the defense, they only gave up 1 touchdown, and it wasn't in the red zone. It was a 31-yard screen pass to the running back, Madison, former Vikings running back, and he caught the pass on the screen pass, and then he took it to the house, 31 yards. But any other time when the Chargers kind of had the Raiders in the red zone, and I don't think the Raiders did anything while in the red zone other than maybe 1 field goal. So that's good. No touchdowns in the red zone, but they did give up 1 touchdown. So the final score, the Chargers kind of clinched it in the 4th quarter, won it with those touchdowns, 22-10. So I believe the Chargers had started the game up 3-0, then they were losing 7-3, then it was 7-6 at halftime, then the Chargers went ahead 9-7, and then it was 16-7, then 16-10, then Chargers got the touchdown, 22-10, and then that was the final score. So overall, I like the Chargers defense, even though they give up some big plays, but they made sure to keep them out of the end zone unless it was like a running back to catch a pass. So basically no receivers got in the end zone, no tight ends, just the running back just got a screen pass, and then I guess it was 2 missed tackles, I guess. But other than that, that was the only good thing about the Raiders offense. And then Chargers defense pretty much kind of kept a lid on it, didn't let it get out of hand. And of course, if you can settle for field goals are not that bad. So, and the Chargers offense, well, I would say the Raiders defense was actually pretty good, and they kept Herbert in check for most of the game, but then he finally got into a groove, and that helped the Chargers kind of pull away just enough. And then they made sure that Justin Herbert didn't get hurt that much, and running backs got to pound the offensive lines, the trenches, and kind of establish the passing game with the run game. So, but I would like to see a little more flow to the offense. But other than that, the Chargers are 1-0 with a 22-10 victory at home. Next week, they travel to Carolina to face the Carolina Panthers, who did pretty bad week 1. They were the worst team, actually. And so I would expect the Chargers to beat the Panthers. And what's great is that both teams are both my teams, Panthers and Chargers. I like the uniform colors and stuff, silver and blue, and then gold and blue. So can't hate anything about that. But I kind of hope someday that both teams will do pretty well at the same time and rule the NFL, and hopefully have a Panthers Chargers Super Bowl sometime down the road. So we'll see. Well, that's it for me, guys. Hopefully you like both parts of this episode, me talking about comedy shows, me talking about the Chargers, and NFL season has started, so let's enjoy it, watch it week by week, listen to me talk about it. I might have some good food places to talk about and more comedy shows to go to and talk about, so can't wait to tell you guys more about my associate producer debut at the Mic Drop. Alright guys, the saying goes, boom, Tiggy Maximus, signing off, baby, later guys.